This episode of Synchronicity is brought to you by EatDreamBee.com, and specifically a product called the Dream Bar. And let me tell you what the Dream Bar is. The Dream Bar is a delicious and healthy snack bar that promotes calmness and relaxation during the day and also promotes dream activity while you sleep. So if you're sleeping at night, that's when to do. If you're sleeping during the day, taking a nap, it'll also promote dream activity there. Hardy and Paul, the founders of Eat Dream Bee, were kind enough to send me a mix pack of the 3 types of flavors of the Dream Bar. The flavors are apple chamomile, tart cherry lemon balm, and banana lavender. And I will tell you, having sampled all of them, if you're looking to try the Dream Bar, which I highly recommend you do, try the apple chamomile. That was my favorite one. It was really delicious. I loved it, actually. And here's a bonus thing. I am a night eater. I like to eat at night. Sometimes it's not the most healthy habit, but I found when I ate one of the Dream Bars at night, not only did I actually remember my dreams that night, which is not something I always do, but it also satiated me so I didn't continue to eat during the night. So that's another little selling point, if you will, of it. And I found it to be a thing that actually worked for me. So as a listener of Synchronicity, if you visit eatdreamb.com/sync, that's SYNC, you're going to get a special offer just for you because you're a listener of this podcast. And it's really awesome of Eat Dream Bee to be a sponsor of this show. As a reminder, if you want to help support this show, help the people who help support this show. And that would be Hardy and Paul over at eatdreamb.com. So once again, visit eatdreamb.com/sync, get a special offer if you're really looking for something yummy and is going to make you more relaxed. And I can attest to this thing. It actually did work. The Dream Bar, check out the apple chamomile flavor, my favorite. Tell them Noah sent you. All right, guys, thanks for listening. And here is the episode.
You know, to every single person, the world is a different place. It's almost like an illusion, and we're creating our own realities, and so it's not really like as real as we think it is.
This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity.
This is Synchronicity. This is Synchronicity.
Welcome to episode 58 of Synchronicity. My guest today is Jessica Reid, and I will get to Jessica in just a second. You guys know the drill if you've listened before. If you don't, I talk about other stuff before I talk about the guest, so that's what I'm going to do now. Let's talk about this Facebook group, Synchronicity Facebook group. Oh my God, guys, there were right around 200 people. People are meeting each other, talking to each other, connecting. It's really cool. I think this will continue to evolve, and I'm happy to see that it's not requiring really too much hands-on guidance from me, which is a good thing because I don't know how much hands-on guidance I would actually be able to provide, but everyone seems to be getting along. It's a cool place. If you don't know what I'm talking about, this podcast has a synchronicity group, closed group on Facebook. It's community. Find it on the website, syncpodcast.com. It's a menu item. Find me on Facebook, add me. I'll add you to the group. It's going pretty well. I think it's going to be a cool thing. Excited to see kind of what can manifest in that space. Also, as a reminder, there's an email community. Email community is approaching 1,000 people. I'm really happy about that because it's consistently the place where I have the most two-way communication with people. So people write back after I send out an email every week, and I've had some really good conversations. People have relayed dreams they've had, certain transcendent experiences, or sometimes we just shoot the shit about football. Caleb knows what I'm talking about. So yeah, there's 2 places. Again, you can join that via syncpodcast.com. There is a pop-up. Sorry if you don't like pop-ups. What you gonna do? I didn't mean to be so aggressive with that. As a digital marketer, I have a love-hate relationship with pop-ups because A, they work. B, if they're targeted, it actually provides value for people. So it's not really a bad thing. And then as a consumer though, it's like, ugh, pop-ups. So I get it, but double-edged sword, right? Okay. Last thing I want to talk about before we get to Jessica is Eat, Dream, Be, these guys. I'm not going to mention this every episode in the intro. You heard at the beginning. Eat, Dream, Be, like my 12 pack of apple chamomile dream bars came today. Really, like I eat them at night when I have the munchies or I'm hungry, but I don't want to go overboard and open up a bag of potato chips and then be like, oh shit, I ate this whole bag of potato chips. That's not a good idea. No, don't do that. So really support these guys if you can. I know there's a lot of ways to support this podcast, right? But this one is something that actually is like what I call a win-win-win. This is a win for you if you get it and you like it and you enjoy it and it provides some value in your life. That's easy, right? If it helps you dream better, be more aware of your dreams, if it relaxes you, if it tastes good, if it's a healthy snack, those are all wins for you. It's a win for me because these guys are paying and to sponsor this show, right? So that's huge. That allows me to kind of shift some of my energy where I normally make my money in the day with client work and shift it a little bit towards this podcast, which means maybe we can get more podcasts, maybe we can get, some people to help out. Like there's a lot of potential things, maybe upgraded website, lots of stuff there. So that's win 2. Win 3 is it helps them grow their business. And Hardy and Paul from Eat, Dream, Be are cool people. So you want to have cool people run successful businesses, right? We don't want to see what's happening now in the Trump administration right now without getting too political, but we're seeing people who are very into deregulation, kind of opening everything up. And while in spirit, I think that's a good thing, allowing everyone to compete under their own terms. Ultimately, if that hurts people like the middle class or people who can't, compete with these mega corporations, that's not a good thing. So this is a way to support a local business in the sense that maybe you don't live in Colorado where Hardy and Paul are, but you're supporting a business who is injecting real values and an ethos into the world that I think would just make it a better place. So that's the win-win-win. Like I said, I'm not going to dwell on this every single episode, but I just wanted to subtly guide you to a way to help this podcast, help them, help yourself potentially. And another quick thing, if you write me an email, guys, noah@syncpodcast.com. I'm looking for guest suggestions, topic suggestions. I'm thinking of doing some live webcasts with some previous guests and some other podcast hosts in the near future. So it'd be like a live thing where you can ask questions, you can sign on, and I think it'll be cool. So, but any other ideas? Like I listen to a lot of stuff. I read a lot of stuff. I watch a lot of stuff. So I always have ideas. I come up with my own, but I really think the power of podcasts, what's being shown to me time and time again, is that it's a two-way communication channel. You can talk to me. I can talk to you. It's not like me saying, I'm this guy. I have all this information. Listen to me. No, like this is really a symbiotic thing in every sense of the word. Okie dokie. On to Jessica. Jessica Reid. Jessica is a global clairvoyant, right? So now listen to how we got connected. Jessica reached out to me on Facebook. I think she had heard the podcast or someone tuned her into it. And she's like, hey, this is who I am. I'm a global clairvoyant. This is a little bit of my bio. What do you think? So here's what happens to me whenever someone says, I am a global clairvoyant, or I'm a medium, or I have these skills, and this is who I am. I have a little sensor that goes off in my brain that says, is this bullshit or is this not bullshit? Immediately, I typically lean towards bullshit almost all the time. I think it's a healthy thing to do, not judgy bullshit, but just like, I got to check this out. I am skeptical to a point. So I went through her website. I got a feel for her on Facebook. I saw what she was up to. I saw what she was going on. And I would be lying if I said there was any specific piece of content that said, oh, well, okay, well, this makes her for real. It was more of a general impression that I use. I call it scanning someone's being to see if they are where they're coming from and what their intention is. I got a really good vibe from Jessica. So we set up the podcast, and I thought this would be an amazing opportunity to talk to someone who has various skills or gifts, clairsentience, the ability to feel other people's feelings, clairvoyance, being able to see things, precognition, being able to predict future events. These are all things that, whether you choose to believe in them or not, that they actually exist, are well documented for thousands of years, right? So if you were in India, 5,000 years ago, and you saw someone with some of these abilities, psychic abilities, you would probably call them siddhis, which are basically, they're essentially spiritual powers. And you can hear about this today, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. This is documented throughout history. Now, if you're very skeptical and you don't believe anything until you see it, it might take you a little longer to accept that these things are going on. So what I thought would be nice in this podcast, and you'll hear it, Jessica is like, I mean, this goes without saying, you'll hear it in the episode, an incredibly lovely, eloquent, and inspiring person. I think you'll hear in this episode what I felt and experienced during the episode, which was, this is someone who clearly has some abilities, is able to vocalize and kind of translate what this is like for her, and then has also built a business and her kind of life around the concept of helping other people. She's using these skills to help other people, right? And so we go into all of these things. I asked her, I play devil's advocate. I say, what do you say to people who think this is bullshit? I say, what is this actually like as you're going through these processes? We talk about it, and I will fess up. I would never call myself clairvoyant or clairsentient, maybe clairsentient. I don't refer to myself as someone with any special gifts or anything, but I would be lying if I didn't say I definitely have experienced many of the things Jessica has spoken about. I've not spoken directly with people who have died or aren't in a body. Well, I have, but not normally. It's not something I can turn on or turn off. So this was as much me, asking her about what it was like for her as me trying to find some context or template that, put my experiences into something that I could understand better. So I also want to talk about siddhis just a little bit. So these spiritual powers, this is a question that, a lot of people get interested in. See someone bending a spoon with their mind, or supposedly walking through walls, or being able to read people's thoughts. And a lot of things jump through people's heads. It's like the X-Men, mutant powers. What would your mutant power be if you were a superhero? What would your power be? And how would you utilize these skills or gifts? And my general approach with all of this stuff is siddhi and gifts and things like this, they are very likely to be distractions for everyone. You can get caught up in that they're so otherworldly, or it's seemingly such a great power that will actually trip you up on a path towards understanding what the nature of reality is actually about, whatever that is. Jessica obviously is using them in service of helping other people. I think that's probably one of the only ways that you would want to cultivate these types of powers. I mean, we can look down the line, 1,000 years, assuming humans are still here and we haven't destroyed the planet or ourselves. I wouldn't be surprised if this stuff kind of evolves and manifests over time, over generations. I mean, I know some younger people, a lot of younger people I know, they just seem to be more in tune with whatever the fuck is going on in the world. Like, it's weird. So I feel like this stuff is slowly emerging, and Jessica and people like Jessica, I imagine will continue to increase in terms of people who not only have these experiences, because I think a lot of us do, but are also able to kind of understand and use them in service of something. So, the general gist with siddhis or spiritual powers, psychic, clairvoyance, clairsentience, astral projecting, remote viewing, all of these things is like, yes, they're cool and they exist, right? I'm fundamentally in the camp. I'm fundamentally in the camp where I believe these things are real. They exist. People are utilizing these both for quote unquote positive and negative reasons. The CIA for a long time had a really vested interest in remote viewing, which is essentially the concept where you can look and view places where you are not locally. So you can, project your mind's eye to some place that physically or actually exists and then look at that. Russia, they had a big paranormal parapsyops operation. So these things have been investigated from many different levels and chains. Ultimately, I think I fall into the camp where this is primarily a distraction. However, if you do experience and have these things, if you can use them to help other people and yourself in a truly beneficial way, go for it. There's nothing wrong with that. So this conversation, I mean, like I said, Jessica, you will hear very early on, she has a very charming New Zealand accent, but I think you'll be able to hear and experience kind of what she's bringing to the table as a person. You can check her out at Jessica Reid on, I don't want to fuck this up, Jessica. JessicaReidOnline.com. And that's Reid, REID. And I'll have links to all of this stuff on the podcast page, on the actual podcast. But I think you're going to enjoy this episode. I really do. I invite you to learn more about Jessica. If anything in this episode piques your interest, shoot me an email. Again, noah@syncpodcast.com. Let's chat about it. I have some cool people coming up on the podcast. I'm going to say this before. Usually I say this at the end. If you don't listen all the way through, you might not know this. I have some really cool people coming up. Had another amazing conversation with Jay Weingarten. I'm interviewing a Donald Trump voter today. I am talking to Bard Azima, who has a wonderful website called empathyrising.com. He wrote an amazing article on the election and kind of how we heal some things going on. I have Vic Berger coming back soon. I have other people I'm not even going to mention in the future and near future. So we got some cool stuff going with Synchronicity. Thank you so much for listening. It is now beginning to impact my life, and I think the lives of others, being able to do this podcast in such a positive way that I really couldn't have foreseen. I obviously, like everyone else, when you launch a project, you have expectations, you have, ideas or goals, but this is far surpassed. We're doing this for a year, all of those for me. So I really appreciate you tuning in. Rate and review, iTunes, Synchronicity if you like. Donate if you want. Thank you, Patrick, the coolest person ever who donates every month. You're super cool. But without further ado, I don't want to take up any more of your precious, precious time, which may or may not be an illusion. But here is, without further ado, Jessica Reid. Thank you for coming on. I'm really excited to have this conversation because I think you're the first person I've had on who has some of the gifts that you have. And I am fascinated individually, about a lot of these things. I've known people who are clairvoyant, clairsentient, and I've experienced people who are mediums who I genuinely believe had that skill, and it's not like some type of ruse. So I'm grateful and honored to have this opportunity to speak to you, and also to find out a little bit about you and your life and kind of how this all fits together with what you're doing now. So really, thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. No, thank you. I'm so excited.
Cool. So, all right. First off, let's see. How would you describe kind of what you do and some of the gifts that you have?
So I would describe it in a way where ever since I was, a toddler, or ever since I could speak, I guess, my parents have been aware that I could see people, speak to people, communicate, or receive messages from people that weren't here in the physical realm, that were no longer in the physical realm, and just being very aware of my spiritual guides, and very sensitive to energies, like very empathic and very just very sensitive to other people and environments and things like that. So I would put it down to clairvoyance, which is the seeing, and seeing through the third eye, and the clairsentient is a big thing, is the knowing, like the clear knowing. And then I guess like psychic gifts in terms of seeing things coming before they actually manifest, or seeing what direction things are heading in. And of course the mediumship as well, that's been really present, especially over the last year, because it kind of all happened when I was really young and really kind of just open to it. And then throughout schooling, I think it just kind of all got shut down because I shut it down because it was like, well, no one else is doing this. So.
Yeah, I get it. I definitely get it.
Yeah, it's like, well, this isn't quite normal. I don't quite understand why I see these things or I feel these things, so I just want to be a normal kid and have fun with the rest of them.
Right.
And then, so like at 18, I moved I left school when I was 16 because I just knew that, like, I know a lot of young people will say, like, school's just not for me, but I just kind of had this intuitive, like, knowing ever since I was like 6 years old that what I was going to do was going to be something really quite different to what a lot of people do, and that it wasn't like a kind of mainstream thing that you would learn at university.
Right.
So I kind of like just had this really strong feeling at school that I needed to move on with life experience, as opposed to, like school and study and everything like that.
Sure.
Because I just felt this draw to like get moving with my life.
Totally.
And so I started, just working and things like that, and moved to Australia at 18 and set up the whole like socially, acceptable or achievement kind of lifestyle in terms of, like a relationship, a house, a dog, nice cars, a good job, and all that kind of stuff. And then just realized, like, once it was all set up, that I wasn't actually happy, that I just set up what I was supposed to set up. And I was kind of just like, this isn't really the point in my life, It wasn't like, I was like, this can't be it. And so I had this like one experience one night where I literally flashed back to a past life where I had a heart attack, and it kind of just almost like opened up some type of portal or some type of like activation, some type of re-emergence back into my awareness, my sensitivities, my gifts, my empathy, like everything just kind of got like, it's just like a door blew wide open overnight. And then all of a sudden I thought I had like chronic anxiety because I was so overwhelmed from that point on. Because
how old were you?
Like, I was maybe 19, 20.
Gotcha.
And so, for like a good 2 years at least, I thought I just had like really bad anxiety because I was consistently overwhelmed, consistently having all these symptoms, consistently picking up on, like, couldn't stand being around other people. Like, there was just all this energy and all this information going on that I couldn't process because I didn't know what to do with it.
Right.
And my mind was just going like, what has happened to me, type of thing. And the only thing that helped, because I went to doctors and things like that, and nothing helped, and I couldn't allow myself to take like antidepressants and things like that.
Sure.
It's like something was just like holding me back from ever going there, even though it seemed like the answer.
Of course.
And so the more that I delved into like meditation and spiritual consciousness, and just started reading books from really kind of like spiritual leaders and things like that, that was the only thing that brought me some type of sense of this is the right way to approach it, or this is bringing me peace, or this is helping me to understand what's going on. And so when I worked with a few clairvoyants and things like that, I learned gradually as I went along how to tap into my gifts, how to become a healer, how to do the mediumship, how to bring the messages through, how to know what energies I was working with, how to work with my guides. Like, everything all kind of just came back into place slowly but surely. And then I just decided that I was going to leave my whole setup, my whole life. So I left my job, left my partner, left Australia, had to rehome the dog, like left everything and came back to New Zealand, and basically just decided, like, I'm going to actually start this business that I've been seeing since I was like 6 years old, because I knew I'd have a business, but I didn't know what it would be. And then I kind of just realized, like, this is my gift, this is my passion, this is where I can help people, and this is my business that I've been seeing all my life. And so I started it. And it kind of just, all the anxiety dropped away. It's like I had 2 years of chronic anxiety, and then all of a sudden it just went because everything came into place.
It's funny how something that you're describing as anxiety kind of was the impetus or the movement to get you to do something that it seemed like you've always known you were going to do. There's so much to unpack in just that little bit. I mean, I'd like to, I mean, there's a lot of awesome stuff there. And, I think it's amazing when anyone can find, get in touch with what they're really wanting to do. I think it's even more amazing when that thing is actually helping other people. I mean, ultimately, I think that's what everyone is trying to do in some way, whether they realize it or not. But when it's fundamentally like, I also, like you, have been lucky enough to, start and make a career out of kind of my desire to help people. And it's when you weave your business life and kind of internal pull together, it really is a special thing. And I want to get to all that, but I'm just genuinely like fascinated and interested in what it was like kind of growing up and kind of learning, especially when you were young, but then going up and kind of having to suppress a little bit, but then having to come back, some of these skills. I mean, to be clear, some of the things you're talking about, to look at it through kind of like a Vedic cosmology, would be described as siddhis, right? They're spiritual powers that can be cultivated throughout many, many different traditions throughout all of time. Like these are spoken about. I personally don't have trouble believing in any of this stuff because I've experienced these things myself. I know people who have some of these skills, but I also, and we can get this maybe a little later on, I want to kind of lay out the devil's advocate point of what someone who may be skeptical about something that they can't empirically prove. So I'd love to get to that too. But first, let's start back. Like, what were some of your earliest memories where your parents were recognizing that you were communicating with something that wasn't there, right? But what were your own personal memories of what kind of these experiences were like clairvoyance or clairsentience? Like, what were the clues to you that something was... Not everyone was perceiving what you were.
So big thing was like the house that I grew up in was a really kind of like old characteristic house, and it had like a lot of energies in there. And I later found out that the French lady who not built the house, but first kind of had the house built for her,
right?
And that she lived in, she actually died in there as well. So I found out all these things later on. But there was just so many energies in the house, and I would always say to my parents, like, I can't sleep in that room. I can't stand being at that end of the lounge. I can't stand in this particular spot by the couch. Like I would like just notice different areas in the house, like specific areas where either I would walk past them or stand by them, I would go like cold, or just kind of something in me was just like, ooh, like something's there, and it's not physically there,
right.
Like just the intensity of the energy or the something. And at that age, obviously I didn't know what it was, but I just would say to my parents, like, I don't like it. It's cold there. There's a cold spot there. Like this area I have to run past every time I want to go past it.
Right.
And at night, like I would lay in bed and literally just feel the presence of like these energies, or what I thought were just people in my room. And I'd literally hide myself, like I'd pull my sheets up, just kind of up around my face, just enough so I could still breathe. But I pull them right up, and I'd just lay there and just really be as silent and as still as I could. I wouldn't breathe too heavy or too loud to make too much noise or movement, and I would literally just sit there, like, you know how you kind of shrug your shoulders, like, or you tense your shoulders?
Yeah.
I just lay there, and I now have like these huge trap muscles because like I built up so much tension in my traps and my shoulders when I was little.
So you can start a workout routine for being frightened, scared. That's funny.
Yeah, and like I would just lay there, and my mum would be going, what is this? Is it a boogie monster? Are these, like, I would go through all these kind of, I'd try to relate it to like movies or cartoons and things like that, because I was only really little, and I'd be like, why are there people in my room, or are they here to burgle me, or like what is like I'd always just like run to my parents' room nearly every night and just be like, "Can I sleep with you?" And they'd be like, "No, you need to learn to sleep on your own."
Right.
But I would literally just feel like these presences in my room every night and just be so stressed and so scared. And then as soon as I fall asleep, obviously it'd be okay. And like my mum would take me to the chiropractor, and my chiropractor would say like, "Your child has the stress on her shoulders of like a 30-year-old. This is not normal." and my mum would be like, "I have no idea why. Like she's she's like a 5-year-old. She shouldn't have any stress at all. There's no stress at home or anything like that." So I think I was a little bit of a mystery to a lot of people as to what was going on with me.
Yeah, totally.
And I would talk, because we backed onto a school, and I'd talk about all these energies, and I remember seeing them. I remember seeing like this tall lady in like almost like a cloak, like a teaching cloak, like a really old style teaching kind of cloak thing. And I'd see like little kids. I saw a baby one time, like always going up and down my driveway.
And like you're physically seeing this with your eyes, or just kind of like a third eye? Okay, you're physically seeing this. I gotcha.
Yeah. And then when I'd concentrate on it too much, it would like kind of disappear.
Totally,
But
sure.
I'd see them and then think, what? And then I found out later on that because we backed onto the school, our driveway used to be the alleyway, like the walkway to the school.
Sure.
So later on I worked out that's why I always used to see people up and down the alleyway. I mean, up and down the driveway.
Right.
Because that used to be the school alleyway. And so my mum was quite aware of, intuitive gifts and people that have these kind of experiences and things like that, and she wanted to learn more so she could understand me a bit more. So she took me to a clairvoyant, and the clairvoyant basically explained what I was seeing, who I was interacting with, why I was, so sensitive, I guess, and what my gifts were, and that I would grow up to do this, basically.
Sure.
So, yeah, I think my mum was like an angel in my life in terms of having someone that was interested in understanding me more and kind of,
providing the conditions. Yeah, absolutely. And fostering totally. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't know what it would have been like if my parents were just like, "You're imagining these things,
right.
That's not normal, shut it down," like that would have been horrible, because it would have just felt horrible to have those experiences discounted, if you know what I mean.
No, yeah. The psychic pressure of having to suppress something like that, not by your own volition, would not be something I would want to deal with. That's for sure. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And it was just kind of like different experiences, like when I'd go to the cemetery with my dad to visit his dad, I'd go off and talk to all these people, and my dad would be like, "Jess, what are you doing?" Like, "Who are you talking to?" I'd be like, "Oh, this man here that's sitting on the fence, and now he's gone."
What is the experience of speaking someone who is not in a physical body? Like, what is that like for you to actually, like, what's the process like?
It's like it's almost like telepathic for me. Like I don't experience it in a way where it's like I talk to them and hear them, like say you and I are talking to each other and hearing each other right now. It's almost like thoughts get, it's the easiest way I could explain it would be, it's almost like a transfer of thoughts going back and forth, and there being like a telepathic communication from a different realm. It's like in this physical world we need to use like our voices and our speech to be able to communicate, but in this other realm that I would kind of, I guess, step into, and I would communicate and see and interact with all these beings, it's like stepping into a different realm where you just communicate through some type of either telepathy or there's no language for it. It's like
I totally get it. I mean, let me see if I can liken it to a couple of experiences that I think people can relate to. One is I've experienced, first of all, I don't tell a lot of people this because it's not something I rely on or use quite often, but I definitely have some clairvoyance and certainly clairsentience, abilities myself. And I've used them in a variety of different ways. And you realize that I think a lot of people, some who don't realize it, also have these skills, but they wouldn't know that and classify it. That's what it is. The two experiences that I would kind of give to kind of maybe get at when you're hearing something or communicating is one, if you've done psychedelics. I have had experience where I've ingested psychedelics with other people and you're basically mind melding. You guys are thinking the same thoughts. You're seeing the same things that aren't in physical reality. You're able to communicate just by a glance or psychically without, and like this is a validated thing after the fact. The other experience that I think is probably more relatable to people is when you're dreaming. When you have a dream and you're communicating with people, it's not like you're actually moving your mouth and hearing. Even if it may feel like that, there's oftentimes you're actually just aware and there's that knowingness that's coming through the dream. And I love dreams for a lot of reasons. One, I think they're great kind of maps and symbols for understanding what's below the threshold of our normal consciousness. But I also love dreams because they're an allegory for for real life, what we call real life, waking life. So I think there's a lot of parallels in language and kind of metaphor that we can pull from there to kind of describe what this process is like for someone like you and who does communicate with non-physical beings. I mean, I get that. So let me always, I definitely want to play devil's advocate here, because if I thought you were someone who, if I thought you weren't telling the truth and this was some made up thing, I wouldn't do this. But because I can intuitively tell that this is something that really your life is about and you've been doing this and had these experiences, I like to ask the question, like, what would you say to someone who says this is nonsense? This is some psychological issue that is manifesting in some weird way. These aren't real things. Like, what's going on? Like, what's your response to something like that? Laughing is, by the way, the perfect response to it. So let's start there.
So, like, you do get those people who want to question what you do, or want to question it because it doesn't really sink into their own belief systems. And you get a lot of religions that are kind of like, they think it's really like a bad thing that you're doing, or it's kind of like, you know what I mean, it's like it differs from different belief systems, and so other people like to question what you do because it doesn't match up with or align with their system or their belief. And so one of the main things is that I never actually, when I have people that kind of question it, and that's not too often, but when I do, I don't feel like it's my job to convince them of it, because it's kind of like, well, if you're happy in your belief system, then like, good for you. Like, it's not my job to make my belief system or my experience everyone else's belief system or everyone else's experience.
Right. You're not a missionary to convert someone. Right.
Yeah, no, like, everyone has their own way of going about life and their own beliefs that support them. But if there's someone that, is actually kind of, they don't quite get it or they don't quite believe in it, but they want to know, a bit more about it, or understand it a bit more. Like, the main thing is it's kind of like the proof is in the pudding, if you know what I mean. Like, when I do the readings, when people that I've never met before, they, book in a reading, they show up, and then I start describing their father, their grandmother, their, their kind of past loved one to them, with like specific details and personalities and things that only that person would know about them, and what their relationship was like with them, and all this kind of stuff. That's where, like, I find the power is, in terms of like, I'm not out there to prove this to anyone, but when I do have the readings and I do bring these details forward and all this information and guidance, and people kind of will just say, like, there's no way you could have known that, or that's exactly the description of, my grandfather, whoever it is to them. That's kind of, or even if it's not a past one, even if it's not a past loved one, even if it's just details about that person, their life journey, and what's happened to them so far, and what they're kind of learning, and what they're challenges are, what's kind of being created forward for them, just all these details and things like that there I couldn't possibly know.
Right.
Even if I stalked them all over Facebook or whatever. Like all these things, it's just like there's the kind of the evidence or
there's a resonance there. Yeah. I mean, that's undeniable. It's what I refer to as direct experience. Like it's something that I think really helps cultivate this aspect of faith. When you have a direct experience, whatever someone tells you, you still have the experience. You have the memory, you know how it's continued to make you feel. So I know exactly what you're talking about. Okay. Let me ask you this. So what do you think, and I want to get to the medium stuff and some of the out of body and astral stuff too. There's so much here. I'm really genuinely excited to have this conversation. What do you think, or do you have any inclinations as to what the mechanism is, what's going on here that you're able to transcend seemingly the liminal boundary between life and death, physical and non-physical, everything we know and understand, or at least can empirically prove. Although I will say a lot of this stuff you're talking about, a clairvoyance and clairsentience, this does fit in with the most modern, science that's coming out, non-local awareness, non-local consciousness. Like this is not like hooey here. This is actually stuff that's beginning to be validated. But in your experience and, with your experiences, what do you think is actually going on? Like, how is this working? I know you mentioned you started reading and studying with, like, who are some of your influences or teachers? Like, what's your basic cosmology of what is going on here?
So I find, I guess for like the more of the logical mind, or like I guess like the left side of the brain that needs the evidence, that needs the kind of understanding of what's going on, I find quantum physics to be one of the best studies to really explain it, in the sense that, we're not really in just this physical world where everything around us is solid, in a sense that, the world is a different place to many different people, almost to every single person. The world is a different place. It's almost like an illusion, and we're creating our own realities. And so it's not really like as real as we think it is, or as solid as we think it is, or as
that's right. Yeah.
It's really kind of an illusion that we think it's the only reality.
Yeah, and neither are we. I'll interject that. Like, neither are we. We're not as solid as we like to think we are.
Yeah, exactly. And the way I explain it is, like, this world that we're in is one dimension. This is, in the sense that, this is the physical dimension, but there are many, 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 many other dimensions that exist, that transcend a lot of our beliefs, or a lot of what we can even comprehend, that are non-physically based, that are of a much higher vibration, higher consciousness. Even if you just look at the galaxies, the universe, you can tell, like, if we believe that this one world is the only thing that's going on, we have to be insane.
Right.
Like, when you look at the bigger spectrum of it, and the galaxies, and the how like the black holes and everything like that it just goes on infinitely. Right. We must be insane to believe that this world is the only thing that exists.
Either insane or egotistical. So
yeah, and so I see it in a way where it's like, this is the physical dimension, the physical plane, but there are millions of other dimensions that are non-physically based, and each and every one of us, I feel like we're all multidimensional beings, and that we can exist within this physical dimension while also existing in or interacting with other dimensions at the same time. But for the most part, most of us only focus here in the physical dimension.
Right.
Because this is where our soul is meant to be. It's meant to be living this life experience in the physical dimension. And for most people, they're not meant to be distracted by or going off into other dimensions. They need to be here and grounded in this experience, and really have this experience for what it is. But for myself and for many other people, it's I explain it in a way where it's like I can be in this physical dimension and live my life here in this physical way, in this human way, but I can also at the same time tap into other dimensions and communicate and be the bridge between the dimensions. So whether it be the bridge between a person here in the human form and bridging them to the higher dimension where their spiritual guides exist and communicating between the two, or whether it be the dimension where their past loved ones exist in spirit and bridging the communication. It's really, and it's realizing that it's not like here and way over there. It's all existing.
Right.
You know, it's non-local. It's all existing in essence. So I can, I think some people get caught up with that because they're like, so you're here on the earth, but you're also like light years away in another dimension. You know, like it's not over here and over there. It's really something that you can access from internally within your consciousness, right here and now.
That's
if
right.
That makes sense.
It makes a tremendous amount of sense. I mean, it's truthfully what mystics throughout the age allude to and talk about explicitly, that the here and now is really all that exists. Time is like akin to an optical illusion. It's like it's a temporal illusion. It's how we play out our experiences in this dimension. But Einstein was confronted with these questions when he started realizing the relativity of time and space. So, I mean, it makes a tremendous amount of sense. And I love that you also gravitate towards quantum physics. I am in no way an expert in quantum physics, but I've read plenty of books and understand the basic concepts of non-locality. And, when dealing with things on a quantum level, 1/1000th of an inch long, the world functions completely differently than it does big up here in like Newtonian space. So it does make a lot of sense. And I love that you point out that it is this kind of multi-layered overlay rather than something over there and I'm going back here. So I would love, there's two, okay, let's talk about, since you alluded to it with some of the spiritual guides, what is the experience like for you? And has it been being a bridge with some of this mediumship stuff? Because I have a very interesting relationship with mediumship. Half of me is skeptical. First of all, there's an aspect of myself that's skeptical about everything. And then there's another aspect that I really use to parse and kind of scan things to be like, is this legit? Is this not? Or not even if it's not legit, is this something that is going to make sense to me where I'm at this time? That's really how I look at it. So, and I know that mediums, there's one guy in particular who channels, allegedly, I'll put that in there, but beings called the Hathors, who are from the fifth dimension, made of light and sound. And I've seen this guy, he's a sound healer, and he, regardless of whether you believe in sound healing or not, or channeling, this guy has like an incredible vocal range. He's doing some amazing chanting with these crystal bowls. But I've had the direct experience where this is something that's going on. And I brought my skeptical friend, whose birthday it was yesterday. Hello, Zach. I brought him to one of these things, and he's not someone who's really overtly into this stuff. And he also experienced what I experienced. So on one hand, but on the other hand, I also know there are a lot of people who are not genuine, who will latch on to something like mediumship or being a psychic or having clairvoyance and use it for their own purposes and gain. And we see people do that in India, the fake gurus and all of this stuff. So I point this out to A, highlight kind of my own perspective, and B, for listeners who are like, well, I don't believe in mediumship. I don't believe this is a thing. I want to kind of buffer that kind of reaction against it, which I know some people have, and allow the space to exist for you to kind of explain what's going on and what it's like for you when you're getting in contact with via mediumship.
Yeah, and I totally agree. Like, I think it's really healthy to have like a healthy level of skepticism in terms of making sure that you're not just kind of like naive and just, just going with whatever someone else says because they say they're, a psychic medium, whatever, do have that healthy level of skepticism, but also with that level of skepticism and using more of the logical brain, then you can utilize that to allow yourself to see the evidence and the facts and the kind of the proof. And then know when you've connected with someone that's genuine, you know.
That's right.
Because there definitely are a lot of people out there that I think see it as a, I don't know, like an easy way for them to, I don't know, whether it be that they're just their intentions are to make money or to fool people. I don't know what their intentions are, but I know that, you know, I agree with you that they are out there, and that does happen a lot of the time. But I feel like if they don't have any genuine gifts, or they don't have any genuine connection, it will become pretty damn obvious, you know, by the time that you realize everything that they just said or everything that they're claiming anyone could say or anyone
but
could
Jessica,
claim, and there's no specific details.
Let me point out a horrible fact that kind of pokes holes in that. And I agree with you fundamentally, but Donald Trump just got elected president here in the United States. And Donald Trump, like I am not someone who's railing against him just because that seems to be the popular thing to do and everyone's angry. And I don't think he's a great guy, but I also realized that by yelling at people and calling them names, you don't solve anything. But I mean, Donald Trump ran his campaign talking nonsense. You know, 90% of what he was saying was just fundamentally not true. Most of it was just made for, you know, to make a point or say something to galvanize like kind of a feeling or an energy, which was mostly rage. I mean, I bring this up just to say that as much as I would love to believe, like I had to do this too, right? Like you hit me up and you're like, hey, I'm interested. This is who I am. I had to do the whole being discerning thing too. And, you know, being able to be, you know, look at something and say, well, this is someone who's genuinely, like, I get a vibe from this person, even if we haven't spoken on the phone or Skype. I had a sense of it, but I recognize that a lot of people, especially new people to a path or a seeking kind of mindset, it can be tough for people to do. And especially if people put on all of the wardrobe and they study. I mean, there are people who study what real, genuine people do and copy it. And this is across all industries. This is in every business and every, you know, so I point that out only to say, like, I am totally with you. I think if you really get in tune and you're open-minded, but have some level of discernment, you can naturally gravitate towards the people who are genuinely doing this. I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, and it is kind of one of those things where, I feel like anyone with a human body, you know, anyone with a sense of some type of gut feeling or intuition or anything like that, or just a general sense of just what they're feeling about a person. I just feel like if someone is not genuinely, you know, in what they say they're in terms of certain different gifts and things like that, and you have that healthy amount of discernment, they become pretty obvious pretty quickly when you realize there's nothing there that gives you any sense of, okay, this is for real, this is real, you know, this is legitimate, you know, that I feel like. And I also feel like the people that are that are in that field that aren't genuinely with those gifts or that, I guess, talent or whatever you want to call it, I feel like the proof is in the pudding in terms of they're not going to really, you know, succeed and have a lot of referrals and have a lot of people raving about them and, you know, things like that, because, you know, that only happens to people that have the genuine connection and authenticity that people, you know, pick up on and then share with others. And I think also a lot of time why people get, I guess, fooled by you know, fakes and things like that is because it's almost like they prey on the desperate or the kind of the naive.
That's right.
People that just want to hear what they want to hear, and so they just tell them, you know, what it is that they want to hear, or just tell them all the good stuff and things like that. So I feel like if someone say like you, that, you know, you're not desperate for the information, you're not kind of a naive, you're not needy for it. If someone like you were to go along to someone who was a fake, and you have that healthy amount of discernment and intuition and gut feeling and everything like that, I feel like it would be pretty
it is very easy to tell. You're absolutely right. It's happened, and it can be mildly uncomfortable when you realize, but yeah, I mean, it is definitely, you're totally right. Once you kind of cultivate that level of discernment and intuition, it does become rather easy to tell. You're right. Yeah. So what is being a medium like for you? What is the experience like when someone is coming to you and saying, hey, I'd like to know who my guides are, or what, I resonate with specifically? What is the process like for you at that point?
So say with like the mediumship, the energies can start kind of appearing or connecting with me. It may be like days or hours before the actual reading itself. If they've booked a reading, I might start picking up on energies and just certain different, I guess, like things such as the other morning I woke up and all I could think about or see was the word grandfather. And then I thought, okay, interesting. And then for the rest of the day, I had a couple of readings to do, and within each reading, there was grandfathers, for the different clients and things like that. So there'll be, or they'll just be like, names that will pop up in my head, or I'll just feel energies around me. Some energies are really like excitable. It's like they can't wait for the reading. Sometimes I get younger energies that are really like, they'll just be bouncing around. I can feel them, and they're kind of just anticipation to connect with their loved one. So things with the mediumship side of thing, that can happen like days, hours before the actual reading itself. I start picking up on different things because it's like their loved ones or their guides start tapping in and start communicating with me beforehand. And then in the actual reading itself, whether it be that they want to connect with their spirit guides or whether they want to connect with their past loved ones.
Right.
Specifically say with past loved ones and with the mediumship, what will happen is, mainly for me, I'll start getting images of different details about how that person appeared. So I might get like bits and pieces, like I might see their hair, what their hair was like. I might see what their skin was like, what their face shape was like, whether they, if it's a guy, whether they had like a moustache or facial hair, or whether they were shaven, or whether they wore glasses. Sometimes they'll show me that they used to smoke a pipe or wear a certain type of hat, or they'll show me like what kind of clothes they may have worn. Like some are very casual, some like will show that they like to dress up or be quite formal. They will show different pieces of jewelry that they used to wear. And then once they start getting that description through and they start recognizing who it is, I'll also, like, sometimes I'll just get that sense of, I feel like this energy is either a father or a grandfather, or whether it's maternal or paternal.
Right.
And then they'll start to literally give me feelings or experiences in my body or in my consciousness of what it was that was significant to their passing. So sometimes I might get like a real tightness in my chest, or I'll feel like it's not like physically happening to me, but it's like I get the experience of it.
I get it.
So my chest will start getting tight. Say like if they had a heart attack or something. One time there was an energy that made half of my body feel numb, and the other half was fine. And I said to them, did they have a stroke? And they said yes. Or I'll pick up on whether it's like my whole body feels like it's ill, or I'll pick up on whether I feel like I've been hit or there's some type of accident. There's just all different types of sensations, or they'll give me images of what was going wrong with either their body, or like one time I had this lady and she lost her son who was like 5 years old, and he was giving me the experience of, he keeps giving me almost like the experience that I felt like I was in her shoes and I had to decide to let him go, and that I had to make that decision, and I had the time to say goodbye. And so she said, and I explained it to her, and she goes, what do you mean by that? And I said, it's kind of like the scenario of, so if someone that you love was in a coma, and you had to make the decision of whether to keep them in the coma or whether to let them go.
Right.
And you had that time to decide and say goodbye. And she said, okay, yeah, my son had cancer and he went into a coma, and I had to make that decision. Jeez. And I got to bring him home and say goodbye to him. And and tell him to go. Like, so it'll be different types of senses of describing something that's significant around their passing, so that that person can have a validation of who it is and what happened to them. And then they'll just start bringing forward a lot of their personality, a lot of the things that they want to say, a lot of things that they want to acknowledge, different types of messages. I just leave it up to them as to what they want to, and if my client has any questions. But just to describe some different experiences, it all comes forward in images and feelings and bodily, experiences almost.
Right.
This is quite interesting.
So, yeah, it really is. So what is it like when contacting or getting in touch with guides who aren't necessarily related or past loved ones in this incarnation? What is that experience like for you? Does that also, follow-up question to that before you answer, I mean, I have had experience, I'm going to liken it to a couple of examples. One is, I always look at someone like Carl Jung, who is one of my favorite just thinkers and just an incredible person. And he had this experience where he wrote, and he didn't write it, but it was put together over a course of his life, something called the Red Book. And what the Red Book was his kind of investigation with voices in his own mind. One of them, which he eventually named or called Philemon. And that is there is these deep, psychologically penetrating conversations he's having, and he thought he was going crazy. And he wrote, this is one of the most world-renowned psychologists at the forefront of intellectual and psychological thought. And he's there when he's going back home, having a conversation with himself and thinking he's going insane. And I've also personally had experiences where I can easily tell that what is going on in my head is not me as I know myself speaking. It is some foreign thing. And I've sometimes had it. A clear example of this is sometimes when I've been very sick, like if in periods where I've gotten the flu or something where it's just like a really nasty, not just like a cold, but something like, oh God, this is attacking me. My mind not only feels disorganized, but I can feel like these different voices and things like this. It's and it feels like I'm getting in touch with the virus or whatever it is going on in that particular sense. But for you, are there times when things kind of peek in or come in unannounced, or you didn't invite them in? And how do you deal with that? And then also, what's it like when you're actually serving as a medium for these things for other people?
Yeah. So with the spirit guides or other energies that are not, I guess, past loved ones.
Yes.
It's a slightly different experience because I guess it's more ethereal in a way, because it's not attached to the human experience like a past loved one is.
Right.
They're showing up as a human being that they were in the most recent life. Even though they're back to being a pure soul, a pure energy, they'll present the way that my client, the person I'm working with, is expecting them to present. Because otherwise, it won't be validated.
It's not going to be, exactly.
So when it comes to spirit guides, it's a bit more ethereal. I guess it's one of those things that with spirit guides, there's not as much proof. There's not as much. The spirit guide area of it is more so something that people will tap into their intuition and feel that they resonate with the descriptions that I bring forward of their spirit guides, because obviously it's not something that we can prove, because with mediumship they know what their past loved one looked like and how they died and what their personality was. But the spirit guides, it's a bit more ethereal in the sense that I feel the energies around a person, and to me it shows up in I'll feel different senses of colors and things like that, because colors to me hold different energies and vibrations and frequencies.
Absolutely.
And you can see that in things like color therapy and things like that. They hold different energies or effects. So they'll show up as color forms. And it's they show up slightly as something that would be recognized by the human in a way that they might show up very tall and slender and very kind of to just show a presence to them, because the very tall and slender energies, I find them very kind of elegant and very kind of wise and very clear and focused, or some energies are very like bubbly and fluffy energies, and some of them are really kind of like quite broad, very strong, very directional, like straightforward energies, you know. So it's almost like they show up as part human to try and associate almost like a personality or a description,
Right.
if that makes any sense.
It makes a
It's
lot of
kind
sense.
like,
It makes a lot of sense.
yeah. So because you wouldn't, it's kind of like you wouldn't look at someone who's very kind of, I guess, overweight and hunched over as someone who's very kind of like is very kind of strong in themselves, or very kind of, I guess, like what's the word? Like there's just different senses of personality or energy that you get from different ways that they present. So they'll kind of form like almost like a being. They'll form like a kind of a presence or an image of themselves, but they're really not like a human being. They're a pure energy, a pure consciousness, and they'll explain to me or help me feel into their energy, whether they're very soft and loving, or whether they're very kind of like straightforward and they like to guide you in a very direct way, or they might be like a healing guide. They might be very connected to like, say, earthly, shamanic, like elemental element realms. So they'll just show all different types of descriptions about themselves, and they'll communicate what they're here to guide this person with. So they'll describe whether they've been with them throughout their whole life, or whether they're just here for a temporary kind of period of their life, and what they're helping them with. I find a lot of women get guides coming forward from the beginning of motherhood, because it's a kind of,
it's a journey. It's like a new beginning. Yes.
Yeah, and a journey where they're responsible for bringing another soul into the world. So I feel like a lot of mothers receive, new guides when they become mothers to help them through that process for the highest good of the mother and the child. And they'll just pass on certain messages to the person about, what they would like them to either focus on or heal or shift or embrace, or they might associate themselves with different cultures as such. Like some energies feel very close to the description of what you would call like an Egyptian energy, or some will be very close to the description of like an Indian energy, or like a tribal, or like Indian American Indian, or like like either a shaman or
totally.
They'll describe themselves. Some of them are very like connected to the almost like a Japanese type of energy. Like they'll present in ways that we in the human form can relate to.
Right, conceptually.
To build like a understanding of the guide in a way that relates.
That's awesome.
It is a lot more ethereal.
I get it. I mean, I've come into contact myself with various energies at various times from various traditions too. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have those experiences. So I know I a lot of what we're talking about is very interesting for me, not only from like a podcasting standpoint, but from like this is useful for someone who has cultivated and been in touch with these skills to validate some of my own personal experiences. So let me ask you this. What about quote unquote negative or darker energies? Have you had experiences with those? And if so, have they come on? I know people who are clairsentient or clairvoyant and have had experiences where they can't really deal with or shut off an aspect. And sometimes some people even feel kind of possessed, or like, they have this energy, or something has kind of like stuck onto them. An experience I always not fondly, but I remember in Robert Monroe's book, Journeys Out of the Body, he describes like he was, learning a technique for how to astral project and how to have these experiences. And one of the times when he rolled out of his body and started to float away, a like goblin-like creature jumped on his back, and then another one came and jumped on, and then some other being came and was like, hey, you got to get these things off you. They will hang on to you and drag you down and kind of mess with your experience. So I always am aware of the light and dark aspects, not that one is good or bad per se, but that there is a duality for some of these things when dealing with dualistic realms. So what have your experiences been along those lines?
So, I acknowledge every end of the spectrum in terms of there's almost like a quote, I can't remember who it's by, but if anyone has ever imagined or thought of or kind of daydreamed about anything, you can pretty much guarantee that that exists somewhere in some realm.
You're pulling from, yes, exactly.
Like, like I acknowledge everything. There's nothing, I feel like there's nothing that I don't believe exists, because I acknowledge that there are things that exist beyond our realm or beyond our consciousness.
I think it's a Picasso quote. I think it's everything you can imagine is real. I think that's the Picasso quote.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. And so I don't deny any of that. But just personally within my own experiences, I have had energies that would be quote unquote negative energies or attachments, which I feel a lot of people, if they had the same experience, they would feel very vulnerable or scared or victimized to them. But there's just something within, whether it be from my guides or just something that's internally that I've kind of come forward with, I guess, is that there's something within me that always says, like, just be love. Don't fear these things, because and how I've like practiced that is, say for example, when I was in Bali, it must have kind of been like the thing that I felt from this energy that I felt kind of attached to me was that they either passed in Bali, or I must have like walked past where they passed over or something like that, right? And it's like I walked past and it's almost like that energy attached to me.
Right.
And it was like a young male energy, and I could just feel him like attached to me. And at first I was kind of like, oh, get out of my energy for like, like, because he didn't feel very happy. He didn't, and most people would experience him as like a negative energy. Right. But I realized like, okay, this is not something for me to resist and push away and to feel victim to. This is something for me to learn from a space of love. And so what I experienced within that was when I actually took some time to acknowledge him like I would acknowledge any human being, and said, what is it that you need from me? Why are you attached to me? Why do you feel so sad or so down? Right? And the thing that I felt him communicating was that he was in such a desperate search for love and for loving energy, because I felt like in his physical life he had a true absence of love, and that he was very lost within who he was and where he was going in life. And so I feel like the reason why he attached was because, not to be like up myself or anything like that, but because I do practice coming from a space of the heart space and of love. And so it's almost like he was explaining that he attached to me because he almost just wanted that energy from me, that love, that kind of nurturing, because I am a very like nurturing or motherly type of person. And what I did was I explained to him that I understood him, but I explained to them, if you actually pass over, like completely move on into what most people would say is the light, or the kind of the complete ascension process or transition.
Right.
I said to him, like, you will feel the most infinite, indescribable love on on a cellular level throughout your whole being. And like said, just like, trust me, the love that you are trying to clench on from me is, not even comparable to the amount of love that you will feel if you allow yourself to go, because I could feel that he wasn't like, he was scared to continue moving forward.
Right.
And I asked like my angels and Archangel Michael to help him, guide him to completely let go of the human kind of attachment and just move on. And then I felt his energy release from me. So, and it's happened with other experiences in the past where energies have been quite negative, but it's kind of like, I think of it as a human being experience where you will meet a lot of people that have like a negative attitude about them or a negative kind of energy about them. But most of the time, those people are hurt people. You know,
That's
you
exactly
ask them why they're angry or why they're sad or why they hate their life. And a lot of the time, if they open up to you, they will say, my father used to beat me. My parents never loved me. I was adopted, or, you know, like, I was raped. I was bullied throughout school. People are hurt, and that's why we then pick up on their so-called negativity. So I think about it in a way where it's like, don't just class people or energies as like negative people and negative energies. Come from a place of love and understand with compassion why they feel that way, and you'll have a totally different experience. You come from a place of compassion, love, healing. You'll, you know, and you know, if it does continue to be something where you just don't feel like you're getting anywhere, I feel like you have to remind yourself that you are the master of your own energy field, and that if you know your power within your own energy field, nothing else can overpower that or make you victim to their energy. If you know what I mean? It's
yes, I do.
You are 100% the master of your own energy field. So sometimes I'll like approach it from a place of, how can I be loving? How can I help them? How can I heal? How can I be of a positive impact to this energy and not just judge it as negative? But if it does get to the point where it's either draining you or not getting anywhere, I will just remind myself that this is my energy field. I set the boundaries, I set the tone or the rules, and I will use that powerful intention or visualization and detach myself from their energy, or ask my angels or my guides or Archangel Michael to detach me from their energy. But I just want people to know that if you come from a place of love, or you come from an understanding that you are so much more powerful than you think you are, when it comes to these other energies, you'll realize that it's a very empowering experience, and that it can be so different to what a lot of people fear about it. Because, if you transcend the fear around it, you can learn a lot.
That is pretty much a great mantra for anyone to take into any aspect of life or death. No, that's awesome. I mean, I think that you're talking about this amazing transmutation that can happen when you meet things with love instead of fear, as hard as that could be. So I have a few more questions, but I want to get to a big kind of question of mine, because we alluded to at the beginning. I'd love to know how you what exactly, like, you've turned your path and your incarnation, and it seems as though you've recognized what you're doing here. And that's an amazing thing. And when anyone can get in touch with that, that's incredible. What were some of the things that gave you the confidence or belief that this is what you wanted to make your career and business as well, not only living through your reality? I would love to hear that, because, and then you could also describe, like, you've alluded to it a lot, but like what your business actually is and how you view you're helping people.
Yeah, definitely. So, the anxiety was a big push for me that gave me the direction to have my gift and my purpose as a business. Because a big thing for me was like, whenever I felt, when I was working for other people, where I was working in cafes and offices and things like that, there was just like a strong anxiety or feeling within me that was just like, this is not what I'm here to do. Like, I'm not here to just be a piece of the puzzle of someone else's vision, or like, there was just like this strong, almost like tantrum like feeling within me that was just,
I love it. I know that feeling.
Like, it's just like, this is not it. Like, this is not it. And I, as I said, like, I've had this vision since I was 6 years old that I would have my own business. And so that's been a huge thing for me, because even though I didn't know when I was 6 years old what the business was going to be, I always knew that I'd have my own business. And that stayed consistent through, I look back on old CVs that I wrote when I was like 16 and things like that. And I'd say like, I'm going to own my own business one day, but I need to get some experience, through working. So one of the big things was like just that strong knowing that I wasn't meant to be in another form of work in terms of working for other people,
right,
or in other people's visions that just didn't fill my soul, didn't feel good for me. So that gave me a big push to just go into the direction of my own venture, because just the idea of going into another job just like hurt my soul.
I know that like, feeling.
No. Yep. And it's not just the normal like, I don't want to work a job type
no
of thing.
It's much deeper. Yes, like I get it.
It's like a strong like stab in the soul when you think about it. So that was a big thing, was like knowing like I'm here to create my own path, my own venture, my own business, my own thing that would support me throughout my life. And the other thing was just when I did start just like meditation classes and workshops and things like that, the response of it and the universe's response to it, in terms of everything being supported, everything being appreciated, everything being of a positive impact, everything working in a flow state, was giving that confidence. It was giving that sense of like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this, like this is working, people are loving this, I am fulfilled knowing that I'm helping people in this specific way. And then it kind of just became to a place where people were like, can I have one-on-one time with you? Can I have a reading? Right. Can you specifically help me with this? And so that's when I began my soul consciousness readings, which I still do now. And that was like another level of, okay, this is actually like a legitimate way for me to support myself in terms of, creating an income and really helping people.
Right. And
then it kind of just took off from there in a way where I was getting booked out with readings, and started doing bigger like working workshops and stuff. And then I started traveling and doing like an online membership and doing mentorships for 3 months at a time, and doing just, played around with all different types of things, like just little kind of offers or different services to kind of just really find the niche, I guess. But I think it was mainly the big push in the first place that was just like, you got to create your own way to go forward. And the big push to have my own business was a big thing to give me the confidence. And then when my gifts were being appreciated and promoted, and like people were really kind of raving about, I guess, like the experiences or responses and things like that, that's what gave me even more confidence to just say, like, this is my zone of genius, or my zone of, what I thrive in.
I love
it.
I love
that
it.
was a lot of confidence. Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing when things, this podcast for me has been a big kind of validator of, these conversations and what I kind of view my overall mission here is. And I just love when I meet other people who are doing that. That's awesome. All right. So I have 3 quick little questions and then 1 question after that. And then we're going to wrap it up. We'll definitely have to do this again too. And I want to stay in touch because I think there's a lot of crossover, and I love that, you're someone who I would refer to as very authentic and genuine. And I get that vibe from you before, during, and I'm sure after. So we'll definitely stay in contact about this stuff. But okay, here's the questions. What is your favorite color?
Pink.
Awesome. What is your favorite number?
3.
Awesome. What is your favorite animal?
Like lots of animals. I would probably have to say dolphin, because I just connect with like just their magicalness.
So you and I also love all animals. My name's Noah. I have to, but my favorite animal is also dolphin. And you win the prize. You're the first person to who I've asked this now for probably like 20 or 30 episodes. You're the first person to say dolphin. So way to be. Okay. And last question is, what is a practical tip that has helped you in your life that you could share with people listening?
I guess like the practical tip would be to be very conscious of what is going on in your internal world more so than what's going on in your external world. Because I feel like if you can create a sense of daily awareness of what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what your perceptions are, what you're believing, what you're focusing on, that is going to be so key in whether it be finding your purpose, whether it be making sure that you're on your path, whether it be the people that you interact with, whether it be opportunities that you align with or take, and just how that is, your internal world is then reflecting in your external world. And, if you can be aware of what's going on within your internal world that is either unhealed or painful or upsetting or negative, you can become more aware of what you are needing to heal or shift or let go of so that your life experience can be much better. One thing I always say to people is if you can journal every day, whether it just be what's going on for you, what you're ready to let go of, what you're ready to heal, what your intentions are, what you would like to manifest, what you would like to achieve, what your dreams are, what your vision is. If you can have that kind of internal connection with yourself, and it doesn't have to be overly spiritual or etheric, it can just be practical self-awareness of your internal world. I just find that that's like my daily key to life.
That is,
it's so simple, but it's so powerful if you create that internal awareness and relationship with yourself and consistently, evolve with it.
I love it. I love this conversation has been fantastic. We're definitely going to have to do it again. Jessica, thank you so much for getting in touch and for agreeing to do this. This is really, it's been excellent.
Thank you so much. I've absolutely loved it. And again, I love the name of your podcast. It's so good.
Cool. We'll be in touch, and thanks again.
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye, Jessica.
Bye.
Apple chamomile, tart cherry lemon balm, banana lavender.
This episode of Synchronicity was brought to you by EatDreamBee.com. Pick up a delicious Dream Bar flavor for you and your family today by visiting EatDreamBee.com/sync, that's SYNC, and thank me later as you sample the delicious array of wonderfully crafted, dream-inducing, health-promoting, relaxation-optimized Dream Bars. Once again, EatDreamBee.com/sync. Thanks for listening. thank you for listening past that. So that is an early sketch of a song that I've been working on. Untitled, don't have a name for it. I'm gonna finish this one, guys. I'm actually really happy with it, and I think it's gonna turn out really well. Just something came together. I want to thank John F. Simon Jr. and his Drawing Your Own Path book for unlocking a level of creativity in myself that I knew was there but didn't know how to get at, and I really think he was a big part of it. So thank you, John, for that. Jessica, right? Great. I mean, come on. Awesome. You can find more out about Jessica. Go to jessicareidonline.com. If you're looking at this episode in your podcast, you know how to spell her name, but let's say you're lazy and you're not. It's Reid. Really cool person. She does some one-on-one sessions, some private stuff. I have a hunch if you just have some questions for her, she'd answer them too. But really, thank you guys so much for listening. A reminder, rate and review Synchronicity on iTunes, Stitcher, however you're consuming these podcast episodes. I don't know. Maybe write to me and tell me. Noah@syncpodcast.com. Thank you to everyone who's donated. Eat Dream Bars. You heard there. Come on. Hardy and Paul. Awesome product. If you need me to take a picture of me literally eating the 12 that I just bought, I will do that. I'm half joking. Not sure. Thank you guys. I will see you next week.